It's time for Lefties Losing It. And what is it with the left and violence? They cannot help themselves. Time and time again, they resort to violence, whether it's mass violence, like we saw with the BLM and Antifa riots, or one-on-one violence like this next clip. Watch here as this lefty loses it during a discussion about abortion, attacking a pro-life activist, Savannah Craven-Antano.
I think that you just don't understand the magnitude of having a child.
Yeah, well, I'm not the one who admitted they would be okay with killing babies in foster care and killing children that have been abused.
That's not the point. What I'm saying.
That's really.
What's wrong with you?
Charming. That punch left Savannah bruised and bleeding, but it's okay because the charming abortion enthusiast who threw that punch has since apologised. Well, sort of. Brianna Rivers of the Bronx said this of her victim. She said, "Savannah is a professional antagonist, not a reporter, and the truth will be told. I will not allow my image to be defamed by this woman's actions. Anyone who knows me knows how respectful I am. I don't even litter. There's no way you believe I'm punching people for disagreeing with my point of view." Lady, I do believe you would punch people because of their point of view, because I've just been watching it. That's precisely what you did. Dear me. I think what these lefties need is a therapy. This next woman agrees with me, but she wants taxpayers or Trump supporters to pay for her therapy because she can't cope in the age of Trump.
All right, so here's what I want to know as an American for this repeated trauma that I'm going through, and the rest of the world, to be quite honest. Asking for the world. Who do we send our therapy bill to? Because now that you've dismantled the entire healthcare system, RFK Jr., you f***ing moron, what are we supposed to do? Oh, actually, are there any therapists left? They're probably not allowed to therapize us, right? Right?
I really do think it's high time that we made asylums great again. Forget about building the wall, build asylums. Talking about asylums, time to check in with MSNBC. Let's hear from Democrat operative Simone Sanders. Here she's crying for gangbangers being sent to El Salvador. Remember, the American taxpayer saves a fortune by housing these criminals in El Salvador instead of US prisons.
I would like to know who's the camera crew that was hired to film this propaganda, and what company is literally exploiting the men in these videos for what? The men that you see in these videos that are dressed in white that the United States sent to El Salvador, your tax dollars are paying for them to be housed there. They didn't just pay for the flight. The tax dollars are paying for every single one of these men. Many of them, now innocent people who are not gang members.
Innocent people, she says. Yes, the sort of innocent people covered in gang tattoos, cavorting with criminals and in the country illegally. Time for a Scott Jennings special on CNN. This time he schools a Karen. No, really, that's her name.
So if we want to just keep
question, who's more popular right now, Donald Trump or congressional Democrats?
Doesn't matter. Donald Trump happens to be the president, doesn't he?
It doesn't. He's sitting at 50-50. You're sitting at 20-80.
He's at 48-50, actually, and increasingly people. Oh, you want to call the AP and tell them
they're closing? You want to call CBS News?
Sure.
Right. Okay. We're not going to go to that over polls. We're not going to.
His numbers are going. His approval ratings are going down.
Where are yours
All right.
headed?
We got to leave it there.
Now, this week I'll be bringing you plenty of footage of the mass tantrum happening around America and in other countries as well. It's like it's 2017 all over again. Let's check out the crowd here and tell me if you notice something about these supposed pro-democracy protesters.
It's what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
Yes, did you notice the number of boomers there, elderly folk? These are the people who benefited greatly from America being a manufacturing superpower once upon a time, who bought their homes at a reasonable price. They're protesting for the status quo. If you think the majority of Trump voters care about billionaires losing billions and the share markets diving, then you haven't been paying attention. Here are some sobering facts. In the US, 93% of the stock market is held by just 10%. The top 10%, the bottom 50% of Americans hold only around 1% of all stocks and mutual fund shares. Now let's go to Senator Josh Hawley. He's had enough of paid activists and assorted lefty troublemakers. Here he turns the tables on Code Pink activists who are calling him a baby killer, and he reminds them of their funding from China.
You have the blood of Uyghurs on your hands.
You're a baby killer.
Oh no, you're a baby killer.
You're a baby
the Uyghur
killer.
babies, their blood is on your hands.
How many bombs did you
the
just
blood
vote
of the
to?
Chinese is
You
on
just
your
voted to
hands.
send
And of course of the Jews.
35,000.
Yep, it's high time that these anti-Israeli mobs got a taste of their own medicine.
You're just a Jew hater, right? You're along for the ride.
You're a Christian
Oh,
Zionist,
no, you
right?
are, oh no.
Yeah.
Don't accuse me of things. You're a Jew hater. You would destroy the nation of Israel.
Sir, you're a public official.
And you
I'm
love
not the one
China,
dropping bombs
that you
on
are
babies.
taking their money, and that you are rabidly
Taking our money and
anti-Israel.
sending it to a
You
foreign
are absolutely
government.
morally despicable.
Taking
And I
our
look
money
forward to one day
You are
the
not
moral
American
comeuppance that you will deserve. You are morally
I'm a healthcare
abysmal.
worker. I save lives.
You are appalling. You're
I'm a
a hatred
healthcare
for the
worker.
Jews.
I
Who
save
cares?
lives. You are a war criminal, baby killer.
Baby killer.
I just love the way he said, so what, when she kept saying, I'm a healthcare worker. Like that gives her immunity from criticism for her abhorrent activism. Now, we've covered at length Disney's latest woke disaster, Snow White, a film that is bombing at the box office and one that is so bad that even Disney seems a little bit ashamed, scaling back the promotion dramatically. But listen here as the star, Rachel Zegler, does a massive backflip. She's gone from bagging the original story to saying it's an example to admire.
That is part of the beauty of Snow White. It has been for 88 years now that she just sees the good in everyone and everything. And I hope that I and so many people who watch this film can embody that as well.
And let's have a good news story. Watch this thief be chased and tackled to the ground. And the humiliation did not end there. Watch Granny put the baddie in a headlock. Well, here's a case of chutzpah. China is accusing the US of bullying after America slapped tariffs on Beijing. And Donald Trump has made it clear that he will impose additional tariffs on China if they impose retaliatory tariffs.
They put a 34% tariff on above what their ridiculous tariffs were already. And I said, if that tariff isn't removed by tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we're putting a 50% tariff on above the tariffs that we put on.
This comes as countries scramble to make deals with the White House, offering to remove tariffs on US products in return for relief from US tariffs. Joining me now is Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, China, which uses economic coercion to bully smaller countries, is seriously claiming to be bullied here. It's rich and they impose these tariffs on countries around the world. So for them to be upset about this, it's one thing for Australia to be upset, but China has not really embraced free trade as we know it.
There's a lot of stagecraft going on in this issue that's rocked the world, obviously, and between the US and China, which is a special part of this whole trade war that's happening, it really is the battle of the century between the two superpowers. And if we are moving towards a multipolar world, which is what Team Trump actually does believe, in which it's no longer going to be a single superpower, but China is going to be a fellow superpower, it has to be recalibrated. And tariffs is where this battle is coming to a head. So they're jockeying against it with each other. And what they're after is obviously trade balance, where they're both doing 10 to 12% of trade with each other. But if you add indirect trade that's US bound, China relies on the US more, so that's the leverage that Trump is imposing. The leverage that China has is that a lot of the supply chains that sit there for vital goods, from fertilizer to penicillin, and they know that, semiconductors, et cetera, hard to bring that back overnight. And so this is where you're kind of seeing the rubber hit the road. It could spill out into arenas beyond even tariffs and trade, such as restricting immigration or student visas. We're not anywhere near there yet, but I would not be surprised if all of that gets put on the table.
The supply chain issue is enormous, isn't it? Because successive leaders have really neglected that area. I think during COVID, we realised how dependent we were on China and how dangerous that was.
Yep.
And it's something that has to be addressed. Whoever's in the White House, you cannot have vital goods dependent on China. You've got to be self-sufficient enough that your penicillin doesn't have to come via China, or a portion of it come from China.
And that is something, you're so right, that COVID really put that in the spotlight, and the US has a lot of economic might to wield in that regard, but it is a lesson for everybody, including Australia.
Absolutely. Now, EU nations are ready to negotiate with the US. Let's hear from the European Commission President.
We stand ready to negotiate with the United States. Indeed, we have offered 0 for 0 tariffs for industrial goods, as we have successfully done with many other trading partners, because Europe is always ready for a good deal, so we keep it on the table. But we are also prepared to respond through countermeasures and defend our interests.
It's interesting. They have offered 0 for 0 tariffs for industrial goods. Is that going to be enough for Donald Trump, or is that too narrow?
It feels like it's a start, and it happened awfully quickly. I think Madam Ursula over there, talks about it as, this is something we do all the time. It's no big deal. She didn't do it last week or last month or last year when she could have.
Absolutely.
Look, it's a start. I think what Trump is after is twofold. One is reciprocity. So the 0 for 0 is one shape that could take. The other is actually trade balance, where the number of things that are present in the market here that come from Europe is somewhat reciprocal in terms of the trade that we do there. So he talks about how US streets are flooded with European and Japanese cars. The reverse is not true, for instance. So that will take longer, where the tariffs even the playing field enough that step 2 is that hopefully the Europeans are actually importing more American goods, which helps go towards reindustrializing America, which is ultimately his goal.
Now, a massive win for the Trump administration in the Supreme Court, lifting a lower court order that blocked the deportation of Venezuelan gangbangers, amongst others. Kosha, it was a 5-4 decision. Amy Coney Barrett, who Donald Trump appointed in his first term, sided with the 3 leftists in the court. Tell me about this victory, what it means for the deportation plan, and the commentary around Coney Barrett. A lot of people are saying she's Donald Trump's biggest mistake.
A lot of people from the Trump base are not happy with her for this decision and other decision. Her and Chief Justice John Roberts, can't rely on them as always being conservative. But notwithstanding that, this is a win, 5-4 for Trump. This is that case 3 Saturdays ago when Justice Boasberg, the federal D.C. District Court judge, said and ordered the planes that were mid-flight outside of U.S. airspace on their way to taking those to El Salvador, taking those gang members out, have to be turned around and brought back. They defied it. This has been running its way up the court. Trump team asked for an emergency hearing with the SCOTUS, and they said that he does have, as commander-in-chief, jurisdiction in invoking that act and saying and declaring who is a predatory invasion or incursion. So we're not at war with Venezuela. That's where people were arguing. But it is an invasion as defined by him, and he has full jurisdiction to do that, not this judge from D.C. They did say that there's some due process rights that should be or could be allowed to these folks, but it would have to be in the venue where they were held, which would be Texas and not D.C. So it's definitely a slap back on Judge Boasberg. And it is a win for Trump because they're going to be able to continue declaring these most criminal, violent gang members and the like, and getting them out of the country quickly.
And the venue is particularly important. Very big difference between DC and Texas there. And this development in the Supreme Court comes as more than 100 illegal immigrants were nabbed as part of a 5-day mass deportation operation in New York. Now, what's interesting about this, Kosha, among those detained were 3 convicted killers. The New York Post reports the group of murderers includes a 49-year-old from Trinidad and Tobago, a 32-year-old from El Salvador, and a 70-year-old from the Dominican Republic. When Trump talks about criminals, hardened criminals being amongst these illegal immigrants, this is what he's talking about, because the border was so completely compromised that you literally had killers crossing over and living freely in the community.
And the horrible cases that will live on in infamy, like Lake and Riley and others who were killed by people exactly like this and this profile. This is the thing, right? So there's the legal thing with the SCOTUS ruling and the minutia of which jurisdiction and what the Article 2 powers are versus Article 3. That's all important, but the everyday person isn't in the weeds following that. The everyday person does understand criminals with tattoos all the way up to their faces coming in, these young, able-bodied men who have no business being here, were openly welcomed in and then committing crimes. So that politically, it really is a win-win for Trump. No matter what he does, he wins. The people are behind him, and the Democrats are really in a box, I think, politically, when they keep defending people like this.
If the Democrats were smart, they would just ignore this issue. They would just try not to bring any publicity to it and let him do what he wants to do in this arena, because, as you said, anytime there's any sort of media attention, there's any courtroom challenges, it's good for Trump. This is a policy that he wins on with the majority every single time. Now, this has got to be the funniest story of the year for me so far. The New York Post reports Kamala Harris was absolutely blindsided by her landslide loss to Donald Trump. She had bought the hype herself. She thought her campaign was in good shape. They had more money, they had good press. And of course, those dodgy poll numbers that no one with a brain trusted, but she actually thought she was going to win comfortably. This is all in a new book on the 2024 presidential election by The Hill correspondent Amy Parnes. She also says Tim Walz, Kamala's VP candidate, was so stunned by Kamala's terrible performance that he was unable to speak on election night. The author describes the Minnesota governor sitting in his hotel room silently on election night as staffers tried to explain the crushing loss. I can just picture that. That is kind of hilarious in many ways. How could they not see this? Surely they have learnt over the years that the polls always underestimate Trump, that no matter how much good press you get, the media's influence has diminished. And Kamala was a poor candidate, just like Hillary was.
It is so hard to believe. I'm sure Amy Parnes's reporting is well-sourced, and this did happen. And it is, in that way, it is possible to believe, because with Kamala, it goes to the point that she didn't have a lot of depth, just to be very blunt about it. And a lot of people said that about her. So she sounds like somebody who at the high level, okay, I've got more money than Team Trump, which she did. I've got more press and favorable press, which she did. So everything's good. I've got some polls that are saying I'm going well. And she never was able to go deeper and dig deeper and check the validity of that, or how much does money matter? How much does mainstream media press matter, to your point? So maybe she was just floating on that surface level and got a shock. We heard similar reports of Hillary Clinton, apparently, was very, very shocked, 2016, November. That one you could still believe because she was a worthy contender. This one, to anybody who's not in the little bubble, it just feels so impossible to imagine.